Welcome back to Plant-Based Kidneys Kitchen. Michelle Crosmer, renal dietitian here. Today we're making some veggie chickpea pancakes, and I found this recipe on Instagram on a page called Maxie's Kitchen, but I've adjusted a few things, made it lower in sodium, changed up some of the veggies used, and the type of flour used, so I am going to share that with you, and then I will put the nutrition information as well as the ingredients for the recipe and how to do it in the note section. So first of all, we're going to use a chickpea flour or garbanzo bean flour. It's the same thing. Usually you can find it in bulk at any store that sells bulk flours, or Bob's Red Mill has some chickpea or garbanzo bean flour. So what we are going to do, and I'm using a clear bowl for my mixing bowl, so hopefully you can see it a little bit better, but we are going to do, of course it doesn't fit in the jar, but we're going to do 3/4 cup of this chickpea flour. So my 3/4 cup measuring thing doesn't fit in my canister, so I use that. Okay, so I have my chickpea flour in here. And the original recipe just said to use the flour, so I decided to use a chickpea flour since it's a good source of fiber and plant protein. So what we're going to do is we'll take 1/2 cup of water and we're going to add it to this, so it's just going to make our batter basically. And it's good with chickpea flour. What I've found is if you mix just with a fork, mix the flour while you're adding the water. Sometimes it can get clumpy. So if you mix it while you add the water instead of just adding it all in at once, then it helps it out. But basically 3/4 cup of the garbanzo bean or chickpea flour, and then 1/2 cup of water. And you're just going to mix that up. And that's going to be our batter. So the next thing is I just completely am leaving out the salt that the recipe calls for. And I'm just going to add some seasonings that don't contain salt because there's a sauce that goes along with this recipe, and that's going to be have some sodium in it. So pretty much my go-to for most things I cook is adding some pepper and garlic powder. And I'm just going to sprinkle that in. You really don't need to measure it. It's kind of however much or however little you like. Some other things that could be good is if you did like paprika, chili powder. It would probably be good if you did like a curry powder, something like that, but it really depends on the flavor profile that you want. So if you see here, just gonna mix that all up, and then we're gonna add our veggies directly to this. So before I add our veggies, I'm going to heat my pan that we're cooking this on. So this is gonna make about 4 pancakes. Which is 2 servings, so I'm just using a pan big enough for that. And then you're going to turn it to medium heat. And the recipe calls for about 1 tablespoon of avocado oil to cook it in. So I'm going to add that so that can start to heat up, because I've already chopped my veggies ahead of time, so that obviously will be pretty quick. So veggies that go into this batter, and you're going to pour it directly into the bowl, is going to be, I used 1/2 shallot, which was about 1/8 cup or 2 tablespoons. So depending how you're measuring it, 1/2 shallot. I used 1/2 jalapeno, or if you have a large jalapeno, it would be about 1/4 of the jalapeno, and that measures the same, about 1/8 cup or 2 tablespoon portion. And again, I'm just putting this directly into the batter. Next is 1/4 cup of chopped bell pepper. And so this is different. The original recipe used thinly sliced cabbage. I didn't have cabbage. I like bell pepper. Bell pepper is a good low to moderate potassium veggie. So is cabbage though, so you could use either. 1/4 cup of grated carrots. You could buy the carrots already grated if you don't want to deal with grating them yourself. Mix that all in. And then the original recipe called for 1/2 cup of thinly sliced leek greens. You could totally use that. Again, I didn't have that. I had some power greens in my fridge. So 1/2 cup of thinly sliced greens. I'm going to add to this. And these are all the veggies, and I'm just going to mix it in here. You have a lot of flexibility with this recipe depending on what veggies you have. I would just say that you ideally want to thinly slice them or dice them. Since it's going in a batter, you don't want to have like huge chunks. But that is what it looks like. And then we are going to use our 1/4 cup measuring cup to do about, it'll bake about 4 heaping 1/4 cup portions. Fork out. And that's going to go directly into the pan. And it kind of seems kind of gross when you're adding the batter to it. It spreads out a little and it's, you know, but it tastes really good. I tried these yesterday, actually. I made them. I did not add the jalapenos to it because I was sharing with my baby. That's a little too spicy. But pretty much you're going to add to your pan, and then it's already on medium heat. With chickpea flour, I usually like to cover it while it's cooking, so it can try to get it crispy on the bottom, but since it's a little bit thicker or denser of a flour, then that helps to make sure it cooks in the middle too. The other thing you can do is if you feel like you could press them down a little with a spatula if you feel like they're too, like they didn't spread out when you poured the batter in, but mine are fine. So I'm going to set my timer for 3 minutes, and then we're going to make the dipping sauce that goes with. So again, I left the salt out of the recipe. One, because you really don't need it. There's a lot of flavor, especially with adding pepper and garlic powder. But also there's a dipping sauce that goes along with the recipe, which of course I've changed a little bit too. So for the dipping sauce, we're going to use coconut aminos instead of low sodium soy sauce. I will show you a comparison since I have both. So reduced sodium soy sauce, so it has less sodium. It's not low sodium, but it's reduced sodium, has about 470 milligrams of sodium per tablespoon. And this brand, Coconut Secret of Coconut Aminos, has 270 milligrams of sodium for a 1 tablespoon portion. Coconut aminos are generally lower in sodium than soy sauce, but you do want to read the label because there are some brands that are not very low in sodium and they're similar to reduced sodium soy sauce. So I'm going to take a tablespoon of coconut aminos. And I'm just adding this to a little bowl to make my sauce or my dipping sauce or dressing in here. You're going to do the lemon juice from about 1/4 of a lemon. I will squeeze that right in here. The recipe calls for 1/2 tablespoon of sesame oil. I don't have sesame oil. I'm just going to leave it out. It also calls for 1/2 teaspoon of water, but that's kind of to thin it out because you have the oil. So I'm just leaving both of those out completely. So I have the coconut aminos, the lemon, and then I'm going to do 1/2 teaspoon of some sesame seeds. All right. And then I like things spicy. If you don't like it spicy, then you can just leave it as is. You could even add garlic powder or something if you want. But I'm going to add about 1 teaspoon of sriracha because I like spicy stuff. So again, the coconut aminos and the sriracha is going to add some sodium to this meal, but overall the total sodium amount is acceptable. So it's still considered low sodium. All right, I'm going to mix this sauce up. As you can see, again, it's not a thick sauce. If you use the sesame oil, it would thicken it up, but it's still good like this. You can drizzle it over the veggie pancakes when you're done. Okay, now, so about 3 minutes on one side, and then I'm going to flip these. I'm going to try to, I usually make a mess with this sort of stuff. Right. And it's nice, it flips just like a pancake. It stays together. Press it down just a little. Going to cover it back up. and set my timer for another 3 minutes. So now let's go over the nutrition information. So again, this recipe is going to make 4 pancakes, and so it makes 2 servings. So 2 pancakes is 1 serving. So per serving, this recipe, and this is including the sauce, this is 261 calories, 9 grams of protein, 245 milligrams of sodium, 503 milligrams of potassium, 137 milligrams of phosphorus, 27 grams of carbs, and 5 grams of fiber. So you can see here, if you didn't do the sauce, let's say you're like, I like these, I'm just going to eat them with a little bit of sriracha or another hot sauce on the side, totally fine. It would be a lot lower in, likely be a lot lower in sodium. Potassium wise, so 503 milligrams of potassium for an entire meal is low potassium. Anywhere from 500 to 700 to 800 milligrams of potassium is going to be considered low potassium on a per meal basis. So you probably want to eat just these chickpea pancakes alone. You might, let's say this is an egg substitute for breakfast, or kind of like an omelet type, veggie omelet type of meal. You could have some fruit on the side, or if this was going to be a lunch or dinner, you could have a side salad. You could roast or cook some veggies on the side to add more to it. Take this off. The other thing that you could do is, you could cook these technically without the veggies added to it. I think the veggies add a really good flavor, but you can make them without the veggies added to it, and you could do all of your veggies on the side. So a big salad, and then this is your plant protein source. Totally whatever you want it to be, but I do think it tastes really good, kind of as a pancake, having the veggies with it, and then having a little bit of a different sauce. And again, if you were to make this as like a salad, you could use this sauce as a dressing even, and it would be good. So we have about 1 minute left, and that way I'm going to show you what those pancakes look like. But again, if you don't like spicy, don't add sriracha to the dipping sauce, and don't add jalapeno to the mix. In place of that, you could do another vegetable. You could do more onion. You could completely leave those out if you wanted. You could add garlic powder to it. You could do cabbage. You could do arugula. You could do zucchini. If you either grate or thinly slice zucchini, that would also be good. There really are a lot of options that you can do for this recipe. Customize it. But I will put all of this nutrition information, the directions in the show notes. But you see, this is like, takes less than 10 minutes to make this. And you can also make them in, make a bigger portion, keep them in your fridge, or you could even freeze it and then have it at a later time. So I'm going to show you what these look like. Flip this so I can see. Awesome. Okay. I don't want to burn myself, but this is what it looks like. So it really is just like a little pancake. It has a little bit of crisp on it. It's cooked all the way through. It has some veggies in it, and I'm going to slice it up and have it with a little bit of the dipping sauce. So I hope you guys enjoy this. Again, this is a recipe that I tailored to make more specific for people with kidney disease that need to have lower sodium option, and that also need to know how much potassium and protein is in the recipe. So I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you guys next time.